Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is going to be the last session of the day for the official first day of Dare to Be Great 4 Era of the Headset. And we're going to jump right in. We have Dr. Andre Jones here, and we are up and running. And this session is Are You an Effective Team? Take it away, sir.
Hello, everyone. Apologies for the technical difficulties. We have those from time to time in the communications center, but I'm happy to be reporting to you live from Doha, Qatar, with GMT +3. So it's 12 a.m., which is tomorrow for you. I'm in your future, and I'm telling you right now, it looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. So we're in the era of the headset. My idea today was actually to wear my headset, which I don't do very often, sometimes from time to time. However, because of the delay, and I'm going to have to take it off because I'm using a different device, as I said, we had some technical difficulties. At any rate, I do want to give some shout outs to some people and acknowledge some people who have been a part of the community of the 911 profession, the 911 ecosystem, including Jacory and Leslie and Jameson and Wendy, Karima. You'll hear from Drew, Trey, who did an excellent presentation as well on organizational culture, one of my favorite topics, as well as the emotional intelligence. Sarah, we heard from Samantha, also hear from Dominique and Roxy. The contributions are really, really great. I think this platform has been especially good for myself, being that I am overseas, and when I'm not able to travel back to the U.S. for various conferences within the churches, Crowdcast and Ricardo has allowed people all over the world to be able to have access to 911 emergency communications type content, whether it be anything from technical as well as to some great operational things. So during the height of the pandemic, again, without being able to travel, it actually kept me very much connected to the 911 ecosystem. And it just keeps me moving one step closer to greatness and helping others also to become great. So I'll go ahead, without further ado, and get started. A lot of the presentations, if you've ever participated or had an opportunity to visit or sit with me in my conversations, which I like to have. I love movies, love Netflix, those kind of things. So most of the time I'm going to make a reference to some type of movie or something that I've watched. It's because I think a lot of them are educational, and typically I will watch movies hundreds and hundreds of times to try to get, what is the meaning of this? I always like my meaning. I'm philosophical, right? I have a PhD, so that's my thing. But one of the movies that really stuck out to me many, many years ago was with this movie called Oblivion. And if you recognize this image, if you've ever seen the movie, if you haven't, it's a drone. So basically, there was an entity, an alien in the up called the Tet, a Sally, who basically had in different quadrants a dispatcher and a technician. And she would ask, "Are you an effective team?" Now, if your answer was anything from either one of you except for yes, what she would do is destroy you, basically. Now, I'm not suggesting that 911 managers and supervisors take these extreme measures when their teams aren't effective, but I think often we can admit that sometimes they do. It may not be physically, but mentally and emotionally, they really, really affect us. And I believe there is a way to create alignment without, breaking us down. We all come to work for different reasons. But it's that shared sense of purpose, I believe, that we need to have reiterated constantly and communicated to make it essential so that we're establishing a thriving workplace, a thriving environment that we can all be proud of when we come to work. I refer to that as being an effective commitment. That is the emotional commitment. I did a study in New Orleans about this, so I'll play that content if you're interested in that as well. Also, to let you know, I speak of where we work as an organization. I don't like to talk about departments or bureaus or agencies or authorities because to me, it makes it seem like I'm not a part of that. This is my department. I want to take this opportunity to talk and reflect on us all being part of an organization because you are on an organizational chart. Most of you should know that, but it's about being interconnected, interdependent, and being involved. So it's a team, it's about being inclusive and contributing to the group success and on occasion, group failure. So again, I will refer to us as an organization from here on out. Even us, we're an organization, very organic and very dynamic. If Ricardo could do the honors for the next slide, please. Is he here? Ricardo. Thank you. So I have to start off by saying I have no conflicts of interest to report. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about me. I know I might look young, but I've actually been dispatching since 1995. Yes, I have, in fact, 27 years of experience in emergency communications. I actually started my career working at a campus police department for a university in Kennesaw, Georgia, in Cobb County. And I really enjoyed that job. It was really just about going to get a job to kind of get through college. It was a work study program. And after that, I had an opportunity with the training officers that worked there that really got me interested in working in 911. I used to listen to the radio. I was like, wow, this is interesting. So I joined, the youngest person there, the 911 center in the city of Marietta, which was then consolidated later by Cobb County, then called the Bureau. And since then, I've worked at different types of agencies, fire and EMS dispatch. I've done hospital-based, private ambulance service, sheriff's department. I even spent some time at the CDC operations center there in Atlanta. And lately, for the last 8 years, I've been here in Qatar, which I'll talk about a little bit later on in the presentation, working as an assistant executive director. My original assignment was to command the control rooms, and then I moved into more of a performance improvement, quality patient safety role as of recently, and then was seconded as part of the World Cup to be in charge of the FIFA Medical Command Center. And that experience came out of working through COVID. We did a lot with our system-wide incident command center. So they were like, hey, you want to do this FIFA thing? So here we are in the middle of the World Cup. So in addition to that, as we heard from Ashley and Jeff, there is life outside of 911. So I did spend quite a bit of time also doing stuff on the private side, working with Priority Dispatch Corporation. So you may have seen me in and out traveling around the country doing software instruction and also doing performance evaluator review, helping centers become ACE accredited. I've implemented lots of programs, lots of softwares, processes, systems, CADs, scheduling, phones, and all of the communication centers that I've been involved in all over the country, now adding to the world. And again, like I said, I've been here for quite some time, which has given me the opportunity to do a lot of travel. So in my spare time, when I'm not pursuing yet another master's degree and PhD and CPE coming up here very soon, I will be doing quite a bit of traveling. So I've been in a lot of countries: Egypt, Italy, France, Spain. And when I come back from CPE in January, I'll be going back to Dubai and then out to Thailand for a little R&R. So yeah, that is pretty much me. I do spend a lot of time doing a lot of educational things. That is very important to me. And the reason why it is important is that I continue to learn and grow myself. I obviously want to be able to share those thoughts with everyone else. So that's one of the reasons why I'm here. The next slide, Ricardo.
I think there's just a slight delay when I hit to
Yes,
the next slide, but it goes right away on this end. So hopefully it pops up
oh,
for you there as well.
got it. Thank you. As far as the objectives of this presentation, I do want to add again, I really want to refer to us and the places that we work as being an organization, right? So the main components that we'll be talking about is purpose, leadership, followership with the twist, and culture. I won't spend a lot of time on each one of these because we are all talking about these in our various segments. So I'll give you my perspective and twist on these things, and then leave it to the other experts that have lots of other information they want to share throughout this conference as well. But I want to highlight that effective organizational, any of these components is a lot different than organizational effectiveness. It's more of a business thing. So each one of these concepts could probably be its own presentation in and of itself. And I will leave Halasan up to putting each one of these together for me for the APCO. She's got some really good tips on how to put together a presentation. So I will look for her assistance on that so I can have a greater chance of being able to get to APCO this year. I mean, I'll be there anyway for CPE graduation, but it'd be nice to do some other things. We've done a lot of things on mental health. Don did a really great session yesterday on that. I won't spend a lot of time on that as well, but I will say that it has been a significant uptick of us addressing these mental health issues over the last couple of years. I do remember back when I was dispatching on the floor, it wasn't a thing. It was like, okay, next call kind of thing. So we're paying a lot more attention to that, and I do have some ideas as far as the culture of that and how we can address that. Again, some very, very high level things. Ricardo, the next slide, please. So the first thing I want to do is talk about what you feel about whether or not you're actually in part of an organization. So we have a little poll. So everyone could go and check the poll. There will be something here that asks you yourself, do you feel that you are part of an organization? And let's see exactly what you think. I know that people again think about, if they're in a workforce or department or a group, but it is a group of people working together. You're on the organizational chart, as I referred to you before. So it is important to think of yourself as being in an organization. So out of curiosity, just want to know if you believe that you are part of an organization. I see some yeses in the comments. Good, good. That's a good thing. Some people not. There's a little poll there if you want to do it there, or you can obviously add it here in the comments. Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead to the next slide. So some significant opening thoughts that I would like to highlight with respect to 911 is something that I think we should always be mindful of as we do this job. This was a statement that I also used in my research, and I think it's very, very important, that it was stated by the Police Executive Research Forum in 2017. And it says that 911 is the most significant social contract between local government and its citizens in the history of the United States. Countless lives have been saved, criminal offenders apprehended, crimes solved, and crimes prevented because of the availability and reliability of 911. Just from looking at that information alone, that's why we are here to do what we're doing, is to make sure that we're improving recruitment, we're improving retention, and resilience above all, to make sure that our 911 centers and our teams and our organizations are effective. If we're unable to do that, if we're unable to prevent resignations, especially unnecessary resignations, yeah, we do have people that will grow. I've been to various centers and each stage from supervisor to manager, but it's always important, regardless of the governing body or the district, that we understand our connectedness and our ability as a person who's working on the floor or even as a manager or supervisor to affect the organization. And we just need to make sure that we continue to connect with it because we will essentially influence the behavior of all of us. Next slide. So, what is effectiveness? Well, how well an organization is managed under specific circumstances can make it or break it. The day will be won or lost based on our attitudes, our affect, in addition to our effectiveness. So the ability to achieve all of these goals and a lack of those things, if we look at the Luciani model, basically is saying that if we have team members that are afraid to come to work, they're vulnerable, they're afraid to ask questions, there's no peace, there's always conflict. You're trying to be committed, but there's no follow through. There's a lack of accountability up and down the chain. And these goals that we have individually may not be necessarily be aligned with our organizational goals, then there's no way that we can be effective. So team effectiveness is the capacity of the group of people, usually with complementary skills. So we're all working together in 911 center to work together to accomplish goals set out by the authority sometimes by the team members or the team leaders. So we don't always have to wait essentially for someone to tell us this is what our goal should be. Sometimes individually we have those things and then those carry up to the team leaders, formal or informal. So the high effective teams are able to motivate each other and to collaborate and to solve problems, which then of course leads to greater and better results. We're always obviously trying to, as much as we can, look to the outcome. Next slide. So what guides us? It is a purpose. Adam Tim, in his wonderful book, talks about this. Here, keep it on my desk. Sent a bunch of these out after National Telecommunications Week. And basically, the mission that we're supposed to establish is what he talks about, is saying, why do we exist? How do we behave? What do we do? How will we succeed? What is important to us right now? And who must do it? There has to be a sense of direction, right? So one of my colleagues, good friends, Tyrell Morris, Executive Director, has said, this is what our mission is going to be here at Orleans Parish Communications District. And you can do this with any of your missions. We will get the right people to the right place at the right time and do it better than anybody else in the world. That sense of ownership of that instilled down to every person is that when they come to work, they're going to ask themselves, today, this is what I want to do. And when they leave, they can ask themselves, did I do this? Today, did I get the right person to the right place at the right time? Yeah, I think I may have messed up on call 156. Okay, what can I do to improve on that tomorrow? And we are accomplishing these goals and using these missions to drive us. And the things that you suggest as an organization up through the people like this executive director is, what can we do to make sure that we have the tools and resources necessary to get the right people to the right place to the right time better than anyone in the world. That is technologies, that is manpower, that is agencies collaborating and working together on protocols. Again, everything is tied in together. I've done exercises with companies before where they basically said, if this is our mission, if what we're trying to do from a monetary or even non-monetary basis is not aligned with this, then it's not something we're able to do. So we have people within the organization, again, even on the front lines, that have excellent ideas about how to make things happen and make things improve. We just need a framework, we need a platform and a safe space in which we can communicate with our managers and leaders in order to be able to make that happen. So we do have KPIs, key performance indicators, that will tell us, are we doing these things? Kind of not relevant for the discussion today, but if we can come back to these as a focal point every day and say, are these the simple things, just simple, that we're actually doing? We can definitely improve our capacity, our capabilities, and our resilience of the organization. So if we do have that as a foundation, we have our mission, then what next? How can I assure that I'm actually committed to this mission? Next slide, I have another poll for you. Again, as a philosopher, I love asking questions, and so I have another question for you. Why are you here? Well, I know why you're here today at Dare to Be Great, but when you go into your workplace and you're sitting down at your console, do you ever ask yourself, why are you here? And this is a time to reflect on that. Another poll. I want to be here, I have to be here, or I need to be here. Now, these are very, very different things. I want to be here is an effective commitment. It's saying that, I really love my job. I love my team members. I really get a lot out of this ability to work, even though sometimes it gets a little bit stressful, emotionally demanding. I still want to come here and do a very good job and serve everyone else in addition to my community. I have to is a little bit different, almost like I need to. I have to could be an obligation, right? An obligation to, I've got to pay bills, I got to support my family, and that's okay. And I need to could be some sense of, you want to be a good Samaritan. So there's something emotional that you get a little bit different than out of the effective commitment, but there still is purpose. Regardless of what your purpose is, as managers and leaders, we accept the fact that whether you hire somebody and their job and their want or need to be at the job is just because they need a job, we expect that as long as you're here, that you're still aligned with our organizational purpose. So this is where the mission and these things need to align to make sure that we're working for the same purpose. Regardless of the processes, we still have this drive together. Next slide. One of the things we've really gotten wrong over the early years, I would say early years for the baby boomers up into my generation, was this concept of command and control. We still have, unfortunately, a lot of operations that still work very much like this. Everything is scripted, everything is standardized, everything is routined, and that is the way that it is. Nothing will ever change because it's easy, to be honest with you. It's the easier way to go. Yes, there are different, micromanagement and different types of things, but the ability to be flexible and to actually be in a position where you can use your mind in order to be able to make things and make improvements is a lot different when you're using different types of leadership styles. So in order to have effective leadership, we need to get away from this idea that this is the way, continuously routinize, standardize things that will come. Yes, there will be positive outcomes, but there's humanality involved in this. A lot of people don't operate on this conveyor belt system of the call comes in, you dispatch it, the officer goes, they arrive on scene, and then you go home. And you do this every day. The work gets kind of boring, right? What are we doing to improve or make these things a little better? So the lack of support, inactivity, and unrealistic expectations very much damages an organization. And by organization, I mean you as an individual. It hurts you mentally. And as far as that, your well being overall. I like how Ellison says collaboration over compliance. Completely. And I refer to that quite a bit. Next slide. So the segue to that is a new direction. So I believe that although there are different types of leadership styles, this is perhaps the best one to use in a communication center, especially as we referred to earlier, the fact that even though we have a mission overall for the organization, we all have a different purpose, which we hope aligns with it. So this means that situational leadership will require a leader, manager, to basically not divide each other into an in group or an out group, those who actually have the most access to a manager or the leader, but to actually situationally address them. So depending on their level of commitment, some people require directing, right? Some people require coaching, some people require supporting, and some people require delegating. Just think of yourself as an individual. Do you require that the manager sit there and babysit you and spoon feed you as much as you know you have to? Well, no. Sometimes you just want to tell me what I need to do and just leave me alone, right? And do that. And I feel like that as well. I have even today, executives will come in, they'll be talking to me, and literally while they're talking to me, I'm on the computer typing. They're like, "Are you paying attention to me?" Yes. Check your inbox. You've already got what you need because you know our thoughts feed as dispatchers and operations people is very fast. And I think that some of the demands that we put on ourselves as leaders is by design, and we need to work to get out of our own way. And the reason why I prefer situational leadership is because we have to accept that there is a lot of diversity and there are a lot of capable people, and everyone cannot be treated exactly the same. There's other people or a lot of people that have different needs, and to bring them up to the same playing field in order to make sure they are part of the in group, you have to address them differently. Now, there are those in the organization, those sour apples that are going to feel like, well, I need support too. Well, if you need support, then go ask for it. Let's not be childish about it. But we don't always know as leaders and managers everything that is going on the floor. We do have people that we report to as well, and it's an open door, right? There's things that we need from you, and there's things that you need from us. So if there is an issue with respect to, you feel like one of these items, if this is what you believe your manager or leader is trying to do is lead in these ways, maybe you have that conversation at your annual appraisal or your performance review and say, one of the things I think I would appreciate a little bit more in working with you is that I like that you include me in a lot of things, but I feel like I can use additional support. Or I know exactly what I'm doing. I don't need the support so much as I need some additional direction. Maybe you can help me with some performance tools to work on my leadership development to become a better supervisor on the floor. So it's a two-way conversation, which is what it should be, not this thing of, okay, this is how you did, or this is what I feel you should actually do. It's about being accountable to each other. Next slide. So again, when we're able to address people as they are and not as we all are, I think we get into a little bit more where we're distinguishing the difference between equality and equity, right? And those opportunities and resources that we're trying to get to everyone as much as we can to make things better. Now, I can say being an executive and even at the manager and director's level that we always report to someone else, right? Sometimes the things that are being asked of us are not our gift to give. So when the director quite often disappears, it's because, and I'll be honest, I have done this as well. It's very hard when someone is asking for something that I know that I cannot provide because I'm not allowed to face the dispatchers. Now, That's a personal thing that I need to get past of, because sometimes, they probably moved on with their lives and they know that. They just want me to have that open door conversation with them. But it's very difficult for us. I can say, going up from very, very, level to level, a lot of us were not taught how to lead. We could do a whole another session, a bunch of courses on that. But the conversations that we typically try to have, and trying to be transformational and have this charisma, it burns out, because you're asking things of us, and we're trying to make sure everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing and having the resources that they need in order to meet the job demands. But on our shoulders are all these extra things, all these other expectations. And I challenge us leaders to always make sure that we are also challenging the people who are challenging us, meaning we're managing expectations. I could go into a whole other, thing about what has been happening here at the World Cup and working the Medical Command Center. And it is definitely about managing expectations. And I think a lot of it comes out of the fact that we are so good at what we do as individuals. We are super heroes that we are expected to be able to do everything. And sometimes we're not. And sometimes we need to be realistic and we need to say, I can't, or I need support, or more resources, or something like that, and try to work on different options. And we need leaders in place that are open to listening to those conversations, to understand that those things are necessary in order to make the organization better. So what is the platform? What is the way to be able to make sure we're in alignment? Next slide, please. Commercial call centers all over the world have used something for a very, very long time called the voice of the customer. Not sure how we have not caught on to this. We do quality improvement reviews and stuff like that. But the voice of the customer, it gives a lot of ideas to the organization on how they're doing. It's a temperature check externally to understand the customer wants, needs, and organize it into a structure that prioritizes it in terms of importance and satisfaction, and then allows us to be able to say, okay, what do we need to do now as far as alternatives to make the customer experience better? So my question is, why aren't we doing this for our internal customers? There is a voice of an employee as well. Some of us have employee action committees, tactical groups, those things like that. But they are very, very scary to leaders, because these are the platforms that people get on their soapboxes, often taken over by the most vocal people in the room, that all they do is complain. But what is wrong with hearing people's complaint? The Let's Talk sessions that we did opened up a lot of doors for us to be able to make improvements, because there were things that were going on that we as leaders and managers had no idea of. Yes, it was talked about in social media and stuff like that, but that's not an official platform. You need a mechanism within the organization that allows people to be able to have a safe space to come and say, you know, I don't like the fact that we have a schedule that is like this. And I think an idea is to do this. Well, you know what? No one had ever thought about that. Let's try it. And that is what I refer to as well as this idea of having the voice of an employee, because it's an opportunity not just to bring in complaints, which you remove the emotion from in order to listen to what they're actually saying. I don't have work-life balance. That's the key. The schedules, all this stuff, yeah, that's part of the problem. But the fact that I don't have work-life balance is the main issue. And we work on a strategy to try to improve that, to make sure that as an organization, we've accepted that it is an issue. And then we work on it qualitatively to make sure that we're trying to improve that. And you don't necessarily need a 100, question job satisfaction survey. Actually, one of the things you could do is this. Next slide, please. I like this because it's very, very simple. When you go inside of an airport or a business, they have the little thing with the like the little smiley faces, and one obviously is not. It's a frowning face. So you walk out and you just tap the little button. It's like I'm happy, I'm sad, whatever. This I think works very well, and you can do it whether it's an employee evaluation or you have darts and you throw it in the community room or whatever, and you're basically saying, how are you feeling? And we should be asking each other. A lot of us have conversations about a lot of things during the day, but I think we very well, in that connectedness, really ask each other the questions that I've been asking today. And I think we should do that. And one of them is, well, how do you feel? And this can tell a lot, and then open up more conversations to understand what is behind that. It just takes a little. If someone says, I'm blessed, they're not going to leave it there, right? They're going to start telling you about all the reasons they're blessed. And now you turn a situation potentially or a conversation that made it seem something negative then to something more positive because now their focus is on all the things that they're blessed about. Now, on the other side, it could be, well, I'm angry. Well, what are you angry about? And then you're starting to listen. So again, it's about talking and having those conversations and connectedness inside of organization. Remember, 70% of our lives is about work. You're either thinking about it, preparing for it, going to it, leaving it. I remember when I worked in the county, 45 minutes of my time was spent driving to work and going home. And I don't know if many of you were like me, it was draining. So the 45 minutes going to work was all about mental preparedness, getting ready, you know. So I may be on this high feeling in a pleasant area. I may be blissful and thrilled or upbeat. But by the end of the shift, I'm like despair, doom, despondent, hopeless, because I have no hope at all in humanity based on the type of calls I listen to all day. And I'm on the way home in that 45 minute, and then the blues gradually get back into the yellows and potentially in the green. My parents used to always tell me, because they had moved back at the time, that I would come home and I would never talk. I'm like, dude, I've been talking like all day long, so it's not something I really want to do. So we just, the mood meter, again, another way to be able to check our wellness, climate check, which is something we should always be doing to gauge our mental health. Next slide. We did talk a little bit earlier. Trey did talk about organizational culture, which I think is all very, very, very important. I think the day, again, as I said before, is won or lost by our affect. I remember that one of the managers told me he could always tell what shift was on duty based on the tone of the dispatchers on the radio. If they were all da, 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 talking really fast, or there was giggling and laughing on the background, he knew it was this team. When I was on duty, we was about business. So, there was no, everything was trite, by the book, command, control, contact and supervise, doing those things. And we teach people how to be a member of the team. That was very important to me because we're here to save lives, right? So we want to definitely make sure that we are doing the most important thing as possible, the shared vision, but also respecting the fact that we have beliefs, attitudes, ways of thinking, and viewpoints that are not of our own. Now, I didn't really understand that as much, although I traveled quite a bit when I was in the States doing stuff with Party Dispatch until I started working here, where a lot of times when I'm speaking to people, the first thing I was like, I don't think they understand what I'm saying. I think I'm speaking English, but the fact of the matter is that most of the people here, probably 90% of the people that I work with, English is not their first language. So I have to work on that and also appreciate the fact that there are things that I have experienced as an American citizen that they do not experience. So we're relatable and we make and understand each other, those unique qualities that are required to build up the organization the way that we want to. And it's all about that shared sense of purpose. A consequence of this, obviously, sometimes is that the leader of an organization needs to have this all-encompassing, impact on it, right? So in generating or attempt to generate positive outcomes, they need to be mindful of what people believe, their attitudes, and their ways of thinking. Very, very important. Next slide, please. So as Hassan said earlier, a lot of managers are all about compliance. When we have that Tayloristic view, all we want to do is have people to follow us, right? Because as a leader, you can't have followers without leaders. But we're in this time period when we're talking about organizational culture and developing organizations and moving forward into organizations that are committed and thriving and well. It's about trust. And sometimes I know you question, like, what are the leaders' motives? To me, an effective leadership is not this person, this tech up in the sky, communicating with everyone, telling them do this, and agree with everything that I say, because otherwise we'd be a bunch of drones. And as we should, we need to challenge the process to make things better, but also understand that the leaders themselves, even with followers, don't always have the vantage point, though they may think that they do. Next slide, please. So what I prefer, as we go back to this situational and or participative style, is that we move away from followership and move toward partnership. So whereas followership describes how individuals respond to and interact with their leader as a follower, what we want actually is we want activists. We had, I don't recall who talked about it yesterday. Activists is very, very important. I was an activist to a certain extent, but I will say my challenges and the legacy that I left at one of the agencies was not necessarily a favorable one. My heart was in the right place, but I think that I was misguided in how I was being an activist, to be honest. But I had the reality of working on the floor. I understood the heartbeat and the climate of the organization. And all I wanted to do is have the leaders and the managers of that organization understand, okay, this can't be tolerated. This is not the way to be able to continue to work and operate and be in this operation. But as an ideal partner, the way to be able to do that is to have a platform to be able to have those conversations. And that did not exist. And it's always good to try to encourage those things, as I said before, to have that kind of relationship, whether again it be a committee, an employee action type thing. Again, it's about listening to the voice of the employee and then putting process improvement in places to change, if at all possible, and improve the perception that pre-existed that caused that conversation to come about in the first place. And it's all about group success, motivation, seeing yourself as an asset and being involved in the solution and not continue to be a part of the problem, just restating over and over again the negativity that's happening. Well, what have you done to resolve or help the situation? Just continue to complain? Okay. I can only myself listen to the complaints so much and listening to the taking out and removing the emotion to get to the underlying issue. And that's what in my brain I'm actually looking for. But we are in this together. It is a partnership. So it's important that we communicate like we are, in fact, partners in an organization. Next slide, please. So Sabrina had said something the other day that really encourages the fact about improving effectiveness, and that is taking care of you so that you have the ability to take care of others. Very, very important. Can't be effective together if you're falling apart, at the seams. So individually, we all have needs, desires, we have values at an organization or a team. But what we're always looking for within this partnership, within our purpose, is support. And wherever there's support, there will always be commitment. This is researched, this is evidence-based, it's very true. I saw it firsthand when I went down to Orleans Parish. The members are empowered because of the support of their leader, and the culture and the climate is reflective of that. I don't know what else to say. I'm hoping that is pervasive eventually. So it's not just about the tech and innovation, it's about the implementation of the tech and innovation, right? Yes, it's great that you've got this new CAD system, but we didn't want it. We don't like it. I remember when I did some stuff for Priority Dispatch, and I would go into the agencies and do the software training. I would always say, ProQA does not care whether you like it or not. All you have to do is this, and this, and then it will tell you, you know what I mean? So, but that's not the right way necessarily to implement. You need to understand the why, right? We need to understand the purpose and the intent for caller management, for better access to resources, to improve the safety of responders, and also to save resources, right? A lot of agencies don't have infinite number of resources, so they're not dispatching 2 engines of a ladder and a rescue to a stub toe. We need to know what is the requirement, and that's why we have these caller management systems. And I think a lot of good leaders are really trying to drive that message, and we just need to try to be more accepting of that and get the champions involved. Again, we're talking about the people in the organization and getting that buy-in. So go to the champions, have them understand this is the tech. This is the training that's required. This is the mental health stuff that we need. How can I use you to get out there and get this message? And then because they love you and they don't like me, tell me what they're saying. Give me this feedback. You're not the guinea pig or the tattleteller. Maybe this is our mechanism for establishing a Let's Talk or Employee Action Committee program to have those types of conversations. Next slide. Another lovely question that I always like to do is say, how can I help? We've alluded to this a couple times in some of the presentations today. Another area, again, as a philosopher, love to ask questions. Please, I encourage you, supervisors to line staff to supervisors, even if you're just walking down the hall and you're on the line, or our supervisor, and you see your director, please ask them how you can help. We are not okay. I can tell you, we got a lot of stuff going on, and again, it's challenging for us to sometimes to face, because we're sometimes I'm like, I don't want to come out of the office. I keep my door closed because I know they're going to ask me, something about the phone system or something about the CAD. I'm like, I don't have control over this. I didn't buy this. And but eventually you get to the point where you can say, okay, we're definitely going to do a new business case for a new CAD system. We're going to have a committee. I want to hear what you're saying about what you like, what you didn't like, what we can make to improve, and move forward. As best you can. It doesn't happen all the time, but this is a great question to ask. Some of the things that I wrote about in one of my blogs on my LinkedIn, and I'll share the details of how to access most of that content here as well at the end, is related somewhat to this idea of how can I help. And that is some of the things that can come out of programs. I love acronyms. Here are a couple of them. Empower. The reason why I put this one up here is because I have this idea, and I may do a research study on it, related to mandatory, as much as possible, wellness. Yeah, it feels like it. Sorry, wellness and health checks for our candidates, our applicants, that we start at the very beginning, continuing that through their journey as a communications officer. I'm not sure if they're still doing these different types of tests at the beginning, but it's like, okay, so what do we do with that information? Maybe, a year from now, 2 years from now, or every year, we re-look at that to see, are you better? Are you worse than you were when you first started? How would we know? We need something to be able to benchmark that. A simple thing coming out of this would to see, as a result of this information, do you need EAP? What kind of counseling or support that can be arranged for you? Would just be a very simple rating system: a red light, yellow light, green light. Green light, again, at the end of the conversation, your employee evaluation, we're good. Yellow light, these are some tools and resources that you may need. Red light, okay, it's time to to provide some suggestions of intervention. Obviously, depending on what state or city or country you're in, those things are not things that you can necessarily mandate. But I am highly interested in knowing that if some program like this was available, that people would actually buy into it. Again, two other acronyms that I talk about in my piece of work that I wrote are also here: belong and thrive, which is basically about how to integrate people into an organization. Again, you have people that have never worked. When I started in 911, I knew nothing about life, let alone how to save lives. So if I had, I think my trajectory would have been a lot different had I been told, okay, welcome to the 911 ecosystem. This is what the journey looks like. This is what we actually do compared to what you see on Rescue 911 when that was the thing on TV. And it's important to do those type of orientations with the people. Next slide. So yet another question for you. Another poll. So why would you leave? This is a good question. And maybe in your employee evaluation, these are the basic questions that you have. Why are you here? How can I help? Why would you leave? Those kind of things. You don't need a 15,000, page employee evaluation at the end of the month. Just ask me 4 or 5 questions, and that's it. Yes, Rescue 911. I'd actually written a pilot a long time ago to rectify a combination of Rescue 911 and Third Watch. Now, I love me some Rescue 911, but Third Watch, let's tell you, if you don't know about Third Watch, you think this new 911 series is something. Third Watch was about. Anyway, so why would you leave? Is it the emotional demands of the job? Is it the workloads? Yes, it does get busy at times, but that's what we're trained for, right? Is it the work-life balance? I'm working 3 days on, 4 days off. Sometimes I'm working 15, 16, 100 hours of overtime. I got a family, I got a dog, I got a cat. I don't have time for anything else except for work. Is it team atmosphere? It's toxic. The organizational culture and the climate here is absolutely insane. Tools, for those of us who are on CAD, is it doing what it said it's supposed to do? For those who are not on CAD, there are some people out there still on pencil and paper. I have nothing against cards. Some of my favorite days. Okay, I can't, work like this. I need something else. I can never find the officers. I don't have GPS, AVL. Or is it the bureaucracy? Is it the leadership? Um, some of the research that I have seen is all pointed toward leadership. Unfortunately, yeah, we can get through, and sometimes the emotional demands, the work-life balance. But if you can see the reoccurring denominator in all of these things is the leadership. So I think that that's some of the areas that we need to focus on. I think we're doing that. All of us here are leaders. We're superheroes. We're really trying to learn what we can to be able to go out there and co-create and make change and get people committed to creating the type of organization that we all feel that we want to work for and that we deserve to work for, right? And by doing so, and not holding court and talking about what woulda, shoulda, coulda been done, we're saying this is the idea that I have, and this is, and I'm willing to take responsibility for it as an initiative and see it through as a process improvement, something. Um, and again, as I've done in the research, asking people why they would leave or after they've left is a little bit too late. We really need to be asking, going back to the very first question is, why are you here? Because they will stay if you're able to contribute more to that line of communication. And how do we do that? Next slide. Again, referring to leadership as the answer, that I showed you the book earlier from Adam Tim, People Driven Leadership. Excellent book. There's a lot of books out of there. Obviously as an academic, it's one thing that I try to do is read things outside of that. I'm sorry, I went one slide too many. Referring back to this one, this was actually some of the ideas that came back out of the survey that I did with in New Orleans, which basically talked about the things that I mentioned earlier. Is that when leadership is involved, these things are mitigated. So it's not that we have a lot of job demands, the workload and stuff like that. The fact that we do have a good team atmosphere, if I do like my job and I do have the tools and resources necessary to do the job, yeah, I can get over the fact that, I have to answer 100 calls, in a 12-hour shift, or that sometimes I may not get the break at the exact time that I wanted, or sometimes I have to work a little extra. I'm in a team, I'm in an organization. I feel great. I enjoy helping people. As you see Carbine up there, that was one of the things that people flagged as an excellent tool that was being able to use. If I have the things that I need, I'm willing to stay because these are an undeniable sense of motivation, and they're alleviating the things that I would otherwise be concerned with. And those are the things that we have in conversations and listening to the voice of the employee to allow to make the voice of the customer even better, right? Because if I'm doing my job good, what is it going to do? It's going to make the outcome good. The outcome is the expectations of the customers, versus whether it be the citizens or the responders to have good outcomes and experience as well with us. Now we can go to the next slide. The foundational elements of how we can get to where we need to be. Again, reading, attending conferences, love conferences. And this book here on how the best 911 centers inspire positive change has been very, very good. Again, like I said, I did in National Telecommunications Week when I did conversations with Adam and some of the YouTube videos. I handed out some of these books.
So it is my belief that the same thing that happened to Dawn yesterday happened to Andrea as well. His phone battery, I believe, probably died. We'll see if you can plug his phone in and jump back in here. Okay, there you are. Oh, better not. All right, we'll give you just a couple more moments. Pop back in. Pamela Q Jeopardy theme. Yes. No, this has been excellent as we've been going through all of this. Um, One of the things I wanted to ask for everyone who's on here, only because I don't see it on my end for whatever reason, but I just wanted to ask the polls. Did the polls pop up for everyone? I had Julie take a look as well, and she sent me a picture that people were able to answer it, but I didn't see them on there. All right, there you are. Could see you
Got it.
and hear
Yeah, I
you.
just it timed out because we were over time. I don't know.
All right, cool. So we're on slide 22. You had just started talking about this book here from Adam Tim, and you're good to go.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Um, so yeah, are really relevant and the questions as we started our initial session. It's just starting here, starting with you, doing what you the organization, and to do as much as you can. Right. I think you all have the ability to affect the community of your environment, the community as in your organization, uh, and living up to the vision and mission. Actually, you can change. Again, listening to the voice, things that are required, the voice of the customer, you can drive mission if they're not aligned. It's hard, it's not easy, but you can do. See the comments about the audio. Yeah, there's a little delay, it looks like.
When you were talking just then, there was no skip.
No skip. Okay, great. None still?
Yeah, give me. This is
Okay,
going to be
next.
weird, but give me a 5 count.
5, 4, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay.
It sounds good. There was one skip there. Let's go ahead and try it. Go for it.
Okay. Next slide.
All right, go ahead. We're on slide 23.
Is basically the wrap up, which is basically to say this is that we have these opportunities to respond as we have in the global pandemic, which elevated awareness of culture, organization. And again, you have the more the company as organizational culture. We do have good employees. We just need to make sure that we are in a position, making sure that and are also our personal values. Then much as it's a little choppy, that's unfortunate. Let me try one thing quickly, and then I'll have like 3 more.
Okay, no worries.
Okay. Yes? Choppy? Not choppy? I can't tell.
Sounds good now.
Okay. I had to reboot.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. That was pretty much my closing thoughts. I did want to, of course, as much as I could in the last remaining 5 minutes or so, give a little example of what I believe has been a great, effective team here in Doha under my leadership. I would like to think I did a pretty good job. And that is here in Doha, Qatar. Go ahead with the next slide, please. So what you're looking here is just what we call the National Command Center. Very similar to what you would see in the United States of America is a consolidated 911 center we call 999. And within this operation, we have specifically all of the public safety agencies represented. It's more of a campus than it is an actual physical locating building, and that the National Command Center has several operational rooms. The main one in the far left-hand corner is the National Operations Center, which is where you'll find most of the public agencies are located. This one has all of our dispatchers and EMDs. In my area, a director at Healthcare Coordination Service, we have 214 emergency medical dispatchers. Our EMDs are licensed, just like paramedics would be as a national registry equivalent. I was able to coordinate with our Ministry of Public Health and Department of Health Professions to license our dispatchers and protect them, similar to what we're trying to do in the United States, is making them a protective service. This has been a 6-year project. We did have a lot of challenges in doing it, but we were able to accomplish this before the World Cup, which is one of the goals that I had. Just to note, what we also see in this photo as part of the campus is different breakout rooms. So on the main building, there are 125 workstations, consoles inside this floor. And upstairs, there's an exact replica of this room with another 125. That would be our tournament command center, which is mostly dealing with our events and major incidents and stuff like that that will happen in and around the country. Next slide. So our ambulance service is quite progressive and very happy that it is. We have about 1,500 staff and at any given time, about 167 ambulances deployed. I'll show you a map of the country so you can see relatively the size of it, so you can get a little bit perception of that. We've been working very hard since the National Health Strategy was implemented back in 2011, and the ambulance service really became very center focused. We have helicopters, we have major incident response vehicles, interfacility transfers. We also do a significant amount of major incident response preparedness stuff. So we have hazmat vehicles, all types of support control vehicles. We call them smart or connected ambulances with all the latest EPCR, AVL, GPS, and stuff like that. And we're obviously, because we are state of the art, always looking to advance. So occasionally we'll put out different RFPs to improve on our technologies. The upper right will show you an example of what our deployment model, for those of you familiar with ambulance service deployment, we do use a system status management model, and we don't have our units in stations or street corners. They're these little deployable, it's kind of like it's a modular, you would call it like a modular home. So we can pick it up and move it if we need it, if the deployment changes. It takes, about a month or so. But it has like a little comfort place, and it has a place for 1 or 2 vehicles, and these are located throughout the country. Next slide. So to the meat of it, if you can imagine in your community where you are having a major incident or event, if you will, whether it's a Super Bowl or the Cotton Bowl or just some kind of bowl game. So within the confines of what we have as the World Cup, we had 8 major league event stadiums, and if you put those in an area about the size of the city limits of San Diego, which most schools would probably have different types of stadiums. But we're talking 8 major league type stadiums. And you had, over the first 8 days, 1 major league bowl type event every 3 hours, with most of these stadiums being within 15 to 20 minutes of each other. You can try to understand a little bit of the magnitude of the amount of events that we're actually doing. So only two of the stadiums are about maybe 35 to 45 minutes from the city center, but for the most part, most of the games were right there together. The part of the medical command center was coordinating the fan festivals, the fan activations, media broadcasts. So everything that touched the FIFA World Cup was under my purview to make sure we're monitoring the activity and also do managed care as it relates to those as we call group one. So your players, your heads of states, delegates, and stuff like that. Next slide. So this is a map. Again, Doha is fairly small. If you put the city of San Diego on top of it, or Atlanta, or Cobb County, all of that would fit inside of Doha. So just think if you had in your community 8 major stadiums in addition to other little activities and these types of events, just how much we would be or you would be expected to be able to do. There was a lot of communication from the start of the event up to test events that we had to test the various communications practices from equipment, also organizational structures, how many dispatchers would be in the various areas, reporting up through the various commands, because there were multiple of them, some public safety related, some of them ambulance service centric. We also decentralized from the ambulance service, so it was a separate component of events and emergency planning. So we had a specific logistics hub where all of the ambulances and equipment were, and then a workforce hub where everything else reported to. So all the staff would report there, and then they would take buses out to the venues just to make sure everybody showed up in time and there was accountabilities from that perspective. Next slide. Again, showing the overall structure responsible for overall activity inside of my area of the MCC, as we call it, the main medical command center. And we communicated a lot with main operations and the FIFA themselves. So I was responsible for talking to FIFA Medical, in addition to other people in the main operations who would have access to stadium authorities, ticketing, what we call last mile, so any activity in and around the stadiums. And we report various incidents of interest that were related to the health sector, because that was our primary our area of responsibility. Activity was reported to us, and then of course we would relay that up through strategic group to Her Excellency's office, just to provide situational awareness of where patients were, what type of activity we were having, and any types of trends, not just locally, but we were also monitoring things externally. Air quality, any people traveling from countries where there were any emerging or infectious diseases were also reported into us. Next slide. So of the 214 EMDs, you would think that we would have enough to deploy through all of these events and all of the sites. We had the National Command Center, the Healthcare Coordination Center, the National Health Incident Command Center, and the MCC. But even with all of those, we were also, as you can see, deploying things to the stadiums, venue operations centers, and major event activations. So we needed help. Most of the time, as I think I prefaced particularly before, is particularly in writings when we were talking about COVID, when we do recruitment, we don't just put out an advertisement and locally people apply. We go abroad. So because of language issues as well, and to make sure that we have the right framework for the people that we are catering to inside the country. For example, when we needed Arabic speaking staff, I did a recruitment trip to Jordan to be able to recruit Jordanians to speak Arabic here in the country. When we needed to uptick our Indian staff or Indian population languages, we went to India, we went to Mumbai. Other times that we need really good English, we went to the Philippines. I didn't go on that trip. But this is how we do our recruitment. So one of the things we did, because we didn't have enough time to do a large recruitment pool for external outside, we did internal placing. So because a lot of departments throughout the health system were going to be closed, like my quality and training department, because we were downscaling it a little bit, where we would use redeployed staff. So staff that would apply to do other roles to assist dispatchers and also be trained as hotel or training event coordinators. We could license them as dispatchers, so I did create some type of job action card that would allow them to be able to do administrative details, because we had a lot of systems that, again, were required to be able to report into the activity. And we did a lot of meetings, teams. I made videos. We did a lot of instruction to make sure everybody understood operationally from a venue all the way up to the main command operations, what everybody was expected to do, keeping in mind that we also still had a major community to look after. So the event side being completely separate from the community, we also had that responsibility. Next slide. And the last one. Looking at the community facing thing, again, if you see this map, this has our stadiums and our deployment model in addition to all the ambulances that we would normally have deployed on a typical day. So working again with the idea that we would probably have increased call volume, implementing Protocol 36, we had a lot of the Omega or Alpha referrals that we had. I instituted that as head profession into our other areas of our what we call our X-ray or Alpha and Bravo codes and did a referral system. So to help and assist with that, we worked with Core Communications to do a communications campaign that let the community know that basically if they call 999, there is a possibility that based on the triage of the incident, that they would be referred to one of the urgent care centers. And primary healthcare was very good about making sure that they had those up and running so that if we were referring people to them, there were not a lot of secondary transfers. So in addition to the 37 staff that we would have on duty at any given time inside of the main operations room for the EMDs and the other 15 in our support area of healthcare coordination service, we had another 20 or 30 that were also deployed. So it's a lot of people being responsible for to make sure that the World Cup was as best as it could be from a patient quality and safety perspective. And we still have about 10 more days to go. So I'll let you know in the end how that goes. Anyway, that is my presentation. Last slide. I hope less the minor technical difficulties that I was able to provide some good information and details, again, on what it means to be an effective organization, one that has good purpose, one that has good culture, one that inspires good commitment, and overall, one that is not afraid of developing, one that is not afraid of improving, and one that involves everyone, especially the voice of the employee. Thank you. And some of you I will see in January and hopefully again in August, if not sooner.
All right. Excellent, excellent. Very well done, sir. This was incredible. Like those pictures towards the end there, looking at I'm going to go back here really quick. Just looking at the center itself. Wow. The National Command Center. Looking at this picture here, when you went to this slide, my eyes about popped out of my head right away looking at it. If anyone has ever seen the movie War Games or even Armageddon, any of those that come like NASA, like all of these, just the way it looks. That's the way it looked, and wow, that is something
The one
else.
actually the old National Operations Center, which is still fairly large. It
Mhm.
had 100 workstations in it, but then they decided for a more integrative approach. And just so you're aware, because it works like an emergency operations center, the other agencies like Civil Defense, which is the equivalent to the fire department, we have FASA, which is like your rescue police department. These agencies representatives sit here, but their dispatchers do not. So if they have a call, they have separate dispatch centers for all of these different organizations as well. We are the only one that has everybody in the same place. So like I said, we have 37 dispatchers on duty in this room at one time, and then the other one we have 15.
Wow, amazing. Thank you again for being on, and it was awesome to have you here and to have you speak. And we had some minor technical difficulties, but we got through it. You got through it, and this is how we do it. So excellent work once again, and I appreciate it. Like we had so much interaction in the comments as well, and it's phenomenal. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
So, for everyone who is here, this is the wrap up of the official first day of Dare to Be Great 2022 era of the head says Dare to Be Great 4. And we've got 2 more days of more powerful sessions, excellent stuff that's going to be coming up. And let me switch this back over here really quick to the last slide. There's that QR code. And I love how you have the Looney Tunes there, the end. Dare to be effective and dare to be great. Again, thank you so very much. Everyone, reach out to Andre here for anything else, any other questions or anything. But again, are you an effective team? Excellent work, my friend. And we will see all of you tomorrow, bright and early. Once again, 8 in the morning. We're going to start it up. and it is going to be awesome. So we've got the after the greatness that's going to be coming up on social media here in about 15-20 minutes, and we're gonna recap the day. And again, we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one, everyone. Have a good night.
Yeah.